Hi guys, this is Mike from leftwinglock.com. Today I want to talk to you about a free tool at our website called the Roster Maximizer tool. This tool was designed to help fantasy hockey managers maximize the number of games played they can achieve throughout the fantasy hockey season. But the tool has many uses, and I want to tell you about some of those today. So if we start by looking at the main menu of the Left Wing Lock website, we can choose Tools from the main menu and work our way down to something called the Roster Maximizer tool. And here's the tool and the inputs we would use. And I want to go through a few case studies here for you. And the first one I want to start with is something you might do during your fantasy hockey draft. So here's a typical scenario. Your fantasy hockey team can start with, say, 2 centers on any given night during the season. Let's assume that you've already drafted 2 centers, one being Claude Giroux of the Philadelphia Flyers, and then we'll take Kopitar for our second center from the Los Angeles Kings. So now you're wondering, who is the third center that you could draft or maybe pick up in free agency that would maximize the number of starts you can get in the center position all season long? The idea here is that players on your fantasy hockey team will have scheduling conflicts throughout the season. For instance, sometimes all 3 players will be playing on the same exact night. And the job of this tool is to minimize those conflicts and tell you which players can provide you with the most starts. So let's do it for this example, okay? We need to choose a start date and an end date, and in this case, we're going to use the entire fantasy hockey season, so October 7th all the way through April 9th. We mentioned earlier that you're allowed to start 2 centers on any given night in your particular league, so we'll choose 2 from this drop-down. And then I already mentioned that we have drafted 2 centers already, Giroux and Kopitar, and so we'll choose 2 from the number of players at this position that we already have. Finally, we need to select the teams for the players that we have already taken, and remember that those teams were the Philadelphia Flyers and the Los Angeles Kings. So we submit our form here, and we let the tool work its magic. And what happens is we get a table of data in return with information for every NHL team. Now the beauty of this table is that it's sortable by any column that we want. Okay? And remember what we're trying to do here. We're trying to maximize the number of starts that we'll get from our third center. So let's go over to this starts column here, and let's sort from highest to lowest value. And what we find out is there's a handful of teams here that would give us somewhere between 55 and 60 starts if we chose a center from their team. And so, Anaheim would be a great choice, Chicago, Pittsburgh, Vancouver, and that's great. But maybe you had a different scenario in mind. Maybe you were deciding between, say, picking up a center on Florida and picking up a center from Toronto. So let's find those 2 teams. Here's Florida. If we pick up a center from Florida, we would get 50 extra starts in addition to the 2 centermen we already have. And if we go down to Toronto, we're only going to get 41 starts. And of course, that's because Toronto has more scheduling conflicts with Los Angeles and Philadelphia than Florida does. And so all else being approximately equal, if you were deciding between a Florida center and a Toronto center as your third center on your fantasy team, the ideal choice here would be Florida because you'd get 9 extra games played over the course of the season. Let's try a different example. Let's say you're already deep into the fantasy hockey season and it's December 1st. And let's imagine that you have 3 wings on your team already, and you're considering picking up a 4th wing for the month of December only. And in this particular case, you can only roster 2 wings per night. So the idea here is we want to figure out what wing, or rather which team, will have a wing for you that provides you with the most games played during the month of December. So for my start and end dates, I'm going to naturally choose December 1st and December 31st. I can roster 2 centers per night, as I said earlier. 2 wings per night. I already have 3 wings on my roster. And those wings are Scott Hartnell, who plays for the Columbus Blue Jackets. James Neal, he's on the Nashville Predators. And Jacob Voracek, who plays for the Philadelphia Flyers. So those are the 3 wings I have. I'm looking to pick up a 4th that will provide me with the most games played during the month of December. So I submit my form. I get a new table of results. We want to maximize the number of starts. And you can see right here the result it gives me the most starts during the month of December for a wing would be to choose someone from the New York Rangers. Okay, and then obviously a choice from, say, the Calgary Flames or the New York Islanders would be less than ideal, because I'm only getting myself 3 extra starts by picking up a wing from those teams. So now you start to see the beauty of a tool like this. But let's try one more example here, something that's a little bit different than your typical roster maximizer. Okay, imagine it's getting late in the season. Let's say it's March 1st. So let's go to March 1st. And we want to figure out which team has the most back-to-back games from March 1st through the end of the season. Now, this might be something you want to know in the event that you own several goalies from different teams, because obviously when you have a lot of back-to-backs during the season, you're not going to get as many starts from your starting goalies. So let's clear out some of these fields here. Again, we're looking at March 1st through the end of the season, which is April 9th this year. We're going to clear these team fields out. And all we want to know here is which team has the most back-to-backs from March 1st to April 9th. So I submit the form. I'm going to sort on the back-to-backs column. And what I see here is there are 2 teams that have the most back-to-backs during that time period. Those teams are the New York Rangers and the Philadelphia Flyers. And so that would give you an indication of what to expect in the final 5-6 weeks of the season, because guys like Steve Mason and Henrik Lundqvist would be yielding the net at a higher rate than other teams. So, for instance, if you were looking for a backup goalie in those last 5 weeks, maybe somebody like Antti Ranta would be a good pickup. Just as easily, you could figure out, for instance, which team plays the most Sunday games during this time period, March 1st through April 9th. I simply click on the Sunday column, it sorts the values for me, and I find out that the Pittsburgh Penguins have 5 games on Sunday during this particular time frame. So these are just some of the uses for the Roster Maximizer tool at leftwinglock.com, and we hope you'll find this to be a useful tool during your fantasy hockey drafts and throughout the fantasy hockey season. Thank you very much for watching our video.